Arthur Ashe. Arthur Ashe, the very first men's singles champion of the Open era. In 1968, Ashe defeated Tom Ocker in a grueling 5-set final, 14-12, 5-7, 6-3, 3-6, 6-3. That scoreline alone tells you everything about the physical and mental demands of early open-era tennis. No tie breaks, no shortcuts, just endurance and execution. Ashe's tactical approach in this match centered around a precise serve and volley game. He used his flat first serve to stretch Ocker wide, then moved in aggressively to cut off points at the net. His volleys weren't just technically sound, they were smartly placed and made it difficult for Ocker to pass. While serve speed stats from 1968 don't exist, contemporary analysis confirms Ashe's delivery was fast enough to win free points, especially on grass. His net success rate was estimated at over 70% for the tournament, and he won over 60% of second serve return points, a key factor in breaking Ocker's rhythm. Ashe's wooden racket offered minimal power by modern standards, which was why every point had to be constructed with precision. Arthur Ashe is revered as one of the first tennis players that proved strategy and control can often beat raw power. His disciplined serve and volley game set the tone for the era that followed. Rod Laver. In 1969, Rod Laver capped off his legendary Grand Slam season by winning the US Open, defeating Tony Roche in the final, 7-9, 6-1, 6-2, 6-2. With that win, he became the only man in the Open era to complete a calendar year Grand Slam, winning all 4 majors in the same year. Laver's win at the US Open wasn't just about legacy, it was built on tactical mastery. After dropping a tight first set, he shifted gears and systematically dismantled Roche using all-court versatility. Laver's serve wasn't overpowering, but it was accurate, unpredictable, and set up the kind of short balls he thrived on. 2 of Laver's biggest strengths were variety and disguise, and he used them to blend flat shots with topspin, hitting both wings with consistency. His backhand, especially the topspin version, was one of the first truly dangerous two-siders in tennis history. It was the weapon that helped him scrape his way out of the round of 16 and quarterfinals against Dennis Ralston and Roy Emerson respectively. He did the same with Roche, keeping him constantly off balance till he gave up in sets 3 and 4. Roche didn't even hold serve more than twice from the point. Laver used a Dunlop Maxply Fort wooden racket, known for control rather than power. But with his timing and clean mechanics, he didn't need modern technology. His movement, shot selection, and ability to adapt mid-match were the true difference makers. Ken Rosewall. Ken Rosewall wasn't built for power, but at the US Open, he didn't need it. What he had instead was elite anticipation, sharp movement, and a backhand that could frustrate anyone on tour. Rosewall claimed his first US Open title in the Open era in 1970, defeating Tony Roche 2-6, 6-4, 7-6, 6-3. He was 35 years old. To this day, that makes him the oldest US Open champion in the Open era. His success came down to one core principle: precision over power. Rosewall was a counterpuncher in an era dominated by serve and volleyers. He didn't blast winners. Instead, he absorbed pace, redirected it, and forced opponents into mistakes. His one-handed backhand, hit with slice more than topspin, was his most dangerous weapon because it stayed low, deep, and consistent. Players like Roche, who is well known for his net games, struggled to volley against Rosewall's low skid and incredible placement. In that final, Roche came to the net more than 70 times. Rosewall passed him almost every time with carefully crafted lobs that forced errors out of Roche. Rosewall's serve was simple and compact. He rarely went above 100 miles per hour, but he placed it with millimeter accuracy, especially out wide on the ad side. He used a Schlesinger wooden racket with tight string tension, allowing for maximum control. Combined with his textbook footwork, he played chess on a hard court while everyone else played boxing. Stan Smith. Stan Smith claimed his only US Open title in 1971 by defeating Jan Kodesh in 4 sets, 3-6, 6-3, 6-2, 7-6. It was a clash between two contrasting styles: Kodesh, the relentless baseliner, and Smith, the classic American serve and volleyer. Smith won that battle by sticking to his identity and executing it with near-flawless consistency. At 6 feet 4 inches, Smith used his height to full advantage. His first serve was one of the most effective of the early 70s, not because of raw pace, but because of its angle and placement. He opened the court with wide serves on both sides and followed it up with aggressive net approaches, over 80 net appearances in the final alone. His volleying was direct, no nonsense. He didn't go for fancy angles or sexy winners. Instead, he aimed deep into the court and forced Kodesh to come up with low percentage passes. More often than not, they didn't land. The 1971 final didn't have tracked serve speeds, but Smith's first serve was estimated at 15 to 120 miles per hour, which is super high for the wooden racket era. His net success rate was reportedly above 75%, a key stat in winning all 3 of the final sets. Smith used a Wilson Jack Kramer autograph wooden racket, which offered limited power but excellent feel at the net. Paired with his fluid movement and textbook volley, it allowed him to transition seamlessly from serve to finish. What separated Smith from the rest of the field in '71 wasn't just execution, it was trust in his style of play. Serve and volley was natural for him, and he mastered it. Ilie Nastase. No one won the US Open quite like Ilie Nastase. In 1972, he defeated Arthur Ashe in a chaotic 5-set roller coaster: 3-6, 6-3, 6-7, 6-4, 6-3. It was a match defined by contrasts: Ashe's power versus Nastase's flair, touch, and relentless improvisation. Nastase's path to the title wasn't just about shot making, it was about disruption. He used rhythm-breaking tactics that confused and frustrated his opponents. One point he'd loop in a 30-shot rally, the next he'd drop shot from behind the baseline. That unpredictability was his greatest weapon. In the final, Ashe came out strong, blasting flat serves and taking control of the first and third sets. But Nastase countered by shifting tempo constantly, often starting rallies with high looping topspin and finishing them with sneaky approach shots or delicate slices. He didn't rely on pace, he relied on feel. His volleys were feather light, often catching Ashe off guard mid-stride. He approached the net more than 50 times in the last 3 sets, converting at a clip estimated around 70%, which turned the match around. Though official stats are scarce from that final, reports describe Nastase as winning a higher percentage of return games in sets 4 and 5, despite Ashe's dominant serve. He also drew over 50 unforced errors from Ashe, simply by refusing to give him the same look twice. Nastase used a head V-less wooden racket and played with unorthodox string tension, loose for touch, tight in the center for control. It gave him the tools to mix spin, trajectory, and speed in ways few players had seen before. By the end of the 5th set, Ashe wasn't just outplayed, he was unbalanced. Nastase's genius wasn't in overwhelming opponents. It was in pulling them into chaos and thriving there. Jimmy Connors. No one in the Open era has won more US Open titles than Jimmy Connors. He took the trophy 5 times across 3 different surfaces: grass in 1974, clay in '76, and hard court in '78, '82, and '83. That's not just dominance, it's adaptability. Connors was the ultimate baseline aggressor. While others were still serving and volleying, Connors was taking the ball early, hugging the baseline and turning every point into a battle. His footwork was relentless. His two-handed backhand was revolutionary, and his return game unmatched in the '70s. His first US Open title came in 1974, where he dismantled Ken Rosewall in just 78 minutes. 6-1, 6-0, 6-1. That final remains one of the most lopsided in Grand Slam history. Connors won over 80% of first serve return points, turning Rosewall's serve into a liability. In 1976, on green clay, he adjusted. Longer rallies, higher bounce, slower pace. But Connors still broke through with depth and consistency, outlasting Borg in a 4-set slugfest. In that match, He hit 55 winners to Borg's 20 and converted 6 of 15 breakpoints, a rare feat against the Swede. Then came the 1982 and 83 hardcourt titles, when Connors was already in his 30s. In the 82 final against Ivan Lendl, Connors was the underdog because Lendl had just beaten him 6-1 in Cincinnati earlier. But Connors disrupted Lendl's rhythm with early ball striking, flattening out his forehand to take time away. He won 6-3, 6-2, 4-6, 6-4, and recorded 36 clean winners with 47 unforced errors, which is a lot. But when you compare it to Lendl's 67, you'll see why he won in 4 sets. His equipment was equally old school. Connors famously stuck with the Wilson T 2000 steel racket long after others had moved on. Its small head and stiff frame demanded perfect timing, but in Connors' hands it became a weapon. 5 titles, 3 surfaces, 1 tournament. Only Jimmy Connors could pull that off. John McEnroe. From 1979 to 1981, John McEnroe turned the US Open into his personal playground, winning 3 consecutive titles with a game built on angles, improvisation, and unmatched feel at the net. While others relied on power or grinding rallies, McEnroe took a different route: geometry. His 1979 title was a warning shot. At just 20 years old, he beat his great friend Vitas Gerulaitis in straight sets: 7-5, 6-3, 6-3. What stood out in that final wasn't power, it was chaos. McEnroe used a lefty serve with impeccable disguise, swinging it out wide or kicking it into the body. He backed it up with relentless net pressure, finishing over 65% of his points inside the service box. In 1980, he defended his title by beating Bjorn Borg in 5 sets: 7-6, 6-1, 6-7, 5-7, 6-4, in what many still call one of the most tactically rich matches of the era. McEnroe approached the net over 120 times, winning nearly 70% of those points. That kind of forward pressure completely flipped the tempo against Borg's baseline consistency. Then, in 1981, McEnroe made it 3 in a row, defeating Borg again, this time in 4 sets: 4-6, 6-2, 6-4, 6-3. McEnroe won 75% of his first serve points, and he hit 41 clean winners to 51 forced and unforced errors, showing how mid the match was in terms of quality. McEnroe's racket, Dunlop Max Ply Forte early in his career, later a Dunlop McEnroe signature wood model, was perfectly suited to his game. Soft touch, thin beam, surgical control. It wasn't built for power, it was built for feel. Despite his reputation for outbursts, McEnroe was coldly efficient when it mattered. He controlled point tempo, diffused big servers, and owned short rallies. From 79 to 81, his net success rate at the US Open was consistently above 60%, and his first serve percentage often hovered around 65%, high for a player who loved to attack. Ivan Lendl. By the mid-1980s, the US Open belonged to Ivan Lendl. He reached 8 consecutive finals from 1982 to 1989, winning 3 straight titles in 85, 86, and 87. And while he lacked the crowd appeal of McEnroe or Connors, Lendl delivered something they couldn't: cold, consistent domination. After losing 3 consecutive finals, Lendl finally broke through with a straight sets win over McEnroe: 7-6, 6-3, 6-4. That match marked a shift. Lendl didn't just beat McEnroe, he wore him down. He kept rallies deep, pinned McEnroe behind the baseline, and neutralized his net approaches with low, skidding backhands. Lendl hit 39 winners to McEnroe's 15 and committed fewer unforced errors, despite playing a far more aggressive baseline game. Lendl followed it up in 1986 by dismantling Miloslav Meciu's 6-4, 6-2, 6-0. That final lasted just 87 minutes. Lendl served at over 65% first serve percentage, hit double-digit aces, and didn't face a single breakpoint. It was the most one-sided men's US Open final since Connors Rosewall in 1974. In 1987, he completed the three-peat with a win over Mats Wilander: 6-7, 6-0, 7-6, 6-4. That final showcased Lendl's mental edge. After losing the first set in a tiebreak, he regrouped and delivered a bagel second set in under 30 minutes. His ability to reset mid-match was elite. Tactically, Lendl was a pioneer of the modern power baseline game. He used a heavy topspin forehand to dictate play and a compact one-handed backhand to redirect pace. He stood well behind the baseline to return serve and pulled opponents into long, grinding rallies. His goal wasn't to finish points early. It was to outlast you until you broke down. Physically, Lendl was years ahead. He followed a strict fitness regimen, hired a nutritionist, and was one of the first players to build a professional team around him. The result of this brilliant move showed in the 1985 to 1987 title runs. He averaged over 75% first serve points won, broke serve in about 40% of return games, and committed fewer than 20 unforced errors per match in a heavy-hitting era. His racket, the Adidas GTX Pro, was a mid-size composite frame with added weight in the handle. It gave him just enough power without sacrificing control. In Lendl's hands, it became the blueprint for what would eventually define modern tennis. Ivan Lendl didn't win crowds, he won matches, and for 3 straight years at the US Open, he was untouchable. Mats Wilander. Wilander wasn't as flashy or as hyped as most top players of his generation, but in 1988 he completed one of the most quietly dominant seasons in men's tennis history that peaked at the US Open. He defeated Ivan Lendl in the final, 6-4, 4-6, 6-3, 5-7, 6-4, in a match that lasted nearly 5 hours and remains one of the longest in US Open final history. Wilander came into the final having already won the Australian Open and French Open that year, but the US Open required something different: controlled aggression. Against Lendl's heavy forehand and superior pace, Wilander leaned into what he did best: adjusting on the fly. He didn't try to out-hit Lendl. He broke up the rhythm. One point, he'd hit with topspin. The next, he'd flatten it out. He used the entire court, pulling Lendl wide, mixing in drop shots, and changing direction with world-class precision. His goal was clear: never give Lendl the same ball twice. Statistically, Wilander wasn't overwhelming, but he was relentless. He landed 86% of first serves, converted 4 of 13 breakpoints, and hit just 36 unforced errors over 5 sets. That's less than 6% in a high-pressure baseline war. Lendl, on the other side, hit a staggering 83 unforced errors. Wilander's return game was also sharp. He didn't go for outright winners. He blocked back deep returns, especially on Lendl's second serve, forcing neutral rallies. From there, he'd construct the point with depth and patience, drawing errors rather than going for them. Wilander used a Rossignol F 200 carbon racket, a flexible frame that prioritized feel over stiffness. Using such a racket, combined with his timing and court awareness, allowed him to absorb power and counter with precision. Tactically, this win was a masterclass. Wilander didn't just beat Lendl, he made Lendl uncomfortable, and on a hard court, that was rare. This win made Wilander the world #1 and capped a season where he won 3 of the 4 majors. Boris Becker. Boris Becker didn't finesse his way to the 1989 US Open title. He bulldozed through it. In the final, he defeated world #1 at the time Ivan Lendl in 4 sets: 7-6, 1-6, 6-3, 7-6. It was a battle of force versus endurance, and Becker's first strike tennis won out. At just 21, Becker played with raw explosiveness. He brought a brand of tennis that was still rare at the time: serve big, swing bigger, finish fast. He wasn't trying to engage in long rallies with Lendl. He was trying to avoid them altogether. In that final, Becker hit 11 aces with a first serve that regularly clocked over 125 miles per hour, peaking near 130 miles per hour. That wasn't just fast. It was unreturnable on hard courts in the late 80s. He won 77% of his first serve points. And when the match got tight, like in the 4th set tiebreak, he leaned on that serve like a lifeline. Becker followed up those huge deliveries with aggressive net play. He approached the net over 80 times in the match, winning close to 70% of those points. His volleys weren't elegant, but they were effective, flat, deep, and decisive. What stood out was how Becker managed the big moments. Lendl was the more experienced player, but Becker was fearless. In both tiebreaks, he hit 3 service winners and 2 outright aces, flipping momentum every time Lendl tried to settle in. Tactically, Becker served wide to open up the court, then attacked the backhand side on the second ball. He played with clear intent: get on the front foot early, endpoints before Lendl could grind. He used a Puma Boris Becker super frame, a thick-beamed racket that offered power and stability on serve. Combined with his athleticism, diving volleys, split-step reactions, and sky-high toss, it made him one of the most physically dynamic champions of his era. Pete Sampras. Pete Sampras won 5 U.S. Open titles in his career, and he did it with a style that felt both inevitable and untouchable. He claimed his first title in 1990, at just 19 years old, beating Andre Agassi in straight sets: 6-4, 6-3, 6-2. That win made him the youngest men's U.S. Open champion in the Open era. But it wasn't a fluke. Sampras would go on to dominate the decade, winning again in 93, 95, 96, and then, in a poetic finale in 2002, his final professional match. What made Sampras different wasn't variety, it was efficiency. He played short points. His goal was always to end rallies in 5 shots or fewer. And at the US Open, that strategy was lethal. His serve was the foundation. In his 2002 final against Agassi, Sampras hit 33 aces, many clocked at over 130 miles per hour, and won around 90% of his first serve points. But it wasn't just pace. Sampras had one of the best second serves in tennis history, spinning it wide, kicking it up, or jamming it into the body with pinpoint accuracy. His second serve was routinely over 100 miles per hour, a rarity in that era. He was also elite at the net. In the 1995 final against Agassi, he made over 80 net approaches and won 86 of his 121 points on serve. Sampras's volleys weren't always clean, but they always hit the right spot. He angled them off, cut them low, and always made the opponent hit one more ball than they wanted to. Sampras used the Wilson Pro Staff 85 throughout his professional career, a small-headed, low-powered racket that offered maximum feel. It suited his compact strokes, especially his signature running forehand, which he often used as a passing shot or to set up a net approach. His 2002 title, against a younger, still elite Agassi, was a full-circle moment. He wasn't the fastest or most consistent anymore, but he won 80% of his first serve points, hit 41 winners, and played clutch tennis on every big point. It was the perfect Sampras match: efficient, ruthless, and perfectly timed. Till today, Sampras remains one of the best players with the most devastating serves tennis has ever seen. It was an incredible weapon in his arsenal, and he used it well. Andre Agassi. Andre Agassi's 2 US Open titles, 1994 and 1999, had to be one of the most dramatic evolutions of any American champion in the Open era. In 1994, he was unseeded. In 99, he was the seasoned tactician. 2 wins, 2 very different approaches. Let's start with 1994. Agassi came in ranked number 20 and seeded outside the top 16. In winning the tournament, he became the first unseeded man to win the US Open in the Open era. In the final, he dismantled Michael Stich 6-1, 7-6, 7-5, with a brutal display of first-strike tennis. Agassi took time away from his opponents like no one else. He stood inside the baseline to return, cut off angles, and turned defense into offense in one swing. In that final, he hit 40 winners and kept rallies under 5 shots more than 70% of the time. Stich, known for his serve and volley game, was never allowed to settle. His return game was especially lethal. In the 1994 run, Agassi had a return rate around 62% and broke Stich's serve 4 times in 6 games. He only faced 2 break points in 3 sets in that final, all of which he saved, while he hit 22 clean winners of his own. Now jump to 1999. This time, it was a different Agassi. Physically leaner, mentally sharper, tactically more mature. In the final, he beat Todd Martin in 5 sets: 6-4, 6-7, 6-7, 6-3, 6-2. After dropping 2 tiebreaks, Agassi made a mid-match adjustment. He started pulling Martin wider with angled backhands and attacking the open court with early forehands. Statistically, his conditioning showed. Throughout the match, Agassi had 75% first serve percentage and a 39% unreturned serve, showing just how incredibly consistent he was despite going 5 sets. His 63% return rate helped him create 10 breakpoint opportunities over 7 games, 5 of which he converted. He also won about 78% of baseline rallies longer than 8 shots, outlasting Martin in the trenches. He was no longer just a shot maker, he was a point builder. He mixed in high topspin, flattened out forehands when needed, and kept Martin constantly guessing with depth and direction changes. 2 titles. One as an unseeded destroyer, the other as a master strategist. Patrick Rafter. Patrick Rafter's back-to-back US Open titles in 1997 and 1998 felt like a time capsule, proof that in the right hands, serve and volley tennis could still dominate. While most of the tour was moving toward baseline aggression, Rafter doubled down on movement, touch, and relentless net pressure. In 1997, he won his first major by defeating Greg Rusedski in 4 sets: 6-3, 6-2, 4-6, 7-5. It was a battle of serve and volleyers, but Rafter's court coverage and transitional play gave him the edge. He approached the net more than 90 times, winning over 70% of those points. And he didn't just charge, he flowed. His footwork, balance, and ability to close the net in 2 steps were elite. What made Rafter different was his variation. He mixed slice backhand approaches with wide kick serves, always keeping opponents off balance. Against Rusedski, he hit 48 winners to just 16 unforced errors, staying aggressive but controlled. The following year, he backed it up with a 4-sets win over fellow Aussie Mark Philippoussi in 4 sets. Prior to the US Open, Rafter had won Cincinnati and Canada, so he was in incredible form. He won 81% of his first serve points with a staggering 42% unreturned serve. Rafter's serve wasn't overwhelming in pace, usually hovering around 110 to 120, but it was all about location and spin. He hit wide slice serves to pull players off the court, then followed in with quick steps and low volleys. His net coverage was among the best of his era. He used a Prince Precision Response racket, strung for feel, and relied on a compact service motion that allowed him to disguise direction. Tactically, Rafter served to the backhand, chipped returns low, and trusted his legs to chase down every lob and pass. He embraced the grind of getting past occasionally, because over 5 sets, his system wore opponents down. Rafter wasn't the most powerful, but for 2 straight years in New York, no one executed a plan more efficiently. If you enjoyed this one, subscribe to the channel, because I'll be posting a lot here. Until next time.